Kiryu-chan! Today on... Hello and welcome to another episode of Press B to Cancel. Today, it is just Jake and myself. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great for this fake Friday. How you doing?
Yes, we are, this is one of our banked episodes, so, it could show up in 2 weeks, it could show up in 2 months, we don't know. But, today we are talking about Yakuza, specifically Yakuza 0. And I know this is a franchise that's like, if you don't count the spin-offs, I think it's 9 games deep now?
Uh yes, because you have 0 to 6, and then we have 7 and 8. 8 just came out.
Yeah.
Although there is it a spin the one with Kiryu, like a dragon man who hit his face or fate or something. That one
Oh,
stars
the man who
Kiryu.
erased his name.
Yes. Does that count as mainline or is that still a spin-off? Because that's all Kiryu.
I would think that's a spin-off, 'cause
Okay.
Kiryu is no longer the mainline Yakuza character,
Right.
or like a dragon character, so
He's still part of that franchise. I found out later though, so he's definitely key. But yeah, you're right because there's also other spin-offs. Like there's like a zombie one, I believe. There's an ancient Japan one or two. Like this is a franchise that
yeah.
has quite a bit of side stories. But yeah,
Yeah, I forgot about the zombie apocalypse games.
yeah.
I don't think those ever came to the West though, did they?
Um, not the zombie one. I'm wondering if there's a fan translation because we just got one of the ancient Japan ones recently, and I'm like, do I want to play yet more Yakuza? Plus, there's also Judgment, which is not even Yakuza. It's a detective or police side of the story in the same cities. Yeah, this is a
Yeah,
studio that
Judgment.
does
I do
one good
have
thing.
those.
Do you? Okay, I heard good
Oh,
things about
no, no,
that one.
no. So Yakuza Dead Souls, I know we are already off on so many tangents. Yakuza Dead Souls did come out in North America in
Did
2012
it?
for the PS3.
Oh,
Now I
okay.
know
So it
I
was a
have to
PS3
look for
one.
that.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, it's such a huge, expansive franchise. It's a ridiculously large franchise. But I mean, I saw it on GOG for like $30 on sale. It's been on sale, I think, on Steam as well in a bundle. But how can you say no to like the entire franchise for $30? It's hard to say no.
Yeah.
So, and I've been wanting to play it ever since I saw you stream it on Twitch years ago. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna start and I'm gonna play it. And I'm like, which game do I start with? Do I start with the original first game, like one? Do I play the remaster, the remake, or do I go like with what is the start of the story, which is 0? So I settled with 0.
Yeah, that's where I started too. I remember when the original one came out on the PS1, just Yakuza. And it at the time, I think magazines were calling it kind of like GTA and stuff like that. And I was kind of like, eh.
Yeah.
I'd kind of had my fill of GTA. I think Vice City was the only one I ever really got into, and even then it was kind of eh. That
This
one, like
feels
the
less like
80s
GTA.
nostalgia.
80s
It
nostalgia.
it
Yeah, I
does.
mean,
Yeah, but then, like, calling it like GTA does the game no justice because it's nothing like GTA.
yeah, like when you say like GTA like I'm thinking like Saints Row or Sleeping Dogs. Sleeping Dogs is definitely a GTA like because there's vehicle
Yeah,
combat and all that kind of thing. But Yakuza feels like more like, if anything, it feels like successor to Shenmue. That's what it feels like to me.
yeah. Had any of the magazines back in the day been like, it feels like a spiritual successor to Shenmue, I would have been all for it because I loved
Yeah,
Shenmue.
right.
I feel like it does what Shenmue wanted to do, but better.
Yeah. Because like everything with this like a vast, huge open city, right? Shenmue tried that. The various mini games, of which there are so many mini games in this franchise that Shenmue had that, plus a great story.
Mhm.
Was there anybody on this team that was related to the Shenmue team actually? Because they're both Sega, right?
Ah, man, yeah, they are, so it must have been, right? Because it feels like a
Some kind of
very
overlap?
similar combat style, even still up through, like,
Right. Yeah.
the Yakuza 0, which came out just before Yakuza 6. So, that's the 6th game they released in the franchise, and that was after they had remade the first 2 each. So, there were so many games deep in this, and it still feels like Shenmue's combat. So there must have been some overlap in the development team there to some major degree.
Okay, so
Or I wonder
Yu
if
Suzuki and Toshiro Nagoshi have a significant history in the gaming industry. Yu Suzuki, known as the creator of Shenmue, and Toshiro Nagoshi, the mind behind the Yakuza series, both have ties to Sega and have collaborated on certain projects. Nagoshi served as supervisor during the development of Shenmue, and that's why he's in the credits of Shenmue. So there's a little bit of a crossover, but I don't think there's
I don't
anything
know.
else more formal.
It definitely seems like there's some sort of connect. Maybe there was just like the higher ups at Sega were like, we want a game that's kind of like Shenmue, because they were all in on Shenmue. It was supposed to be 4 games long,
Yeah,
and we got 2 of them before the franchise kind of got canned, and then 20 some odd years later, the third one came out, and it
yeah,
eh,
yeah.
didn't do well.
When the third one was coming out, I'm like, maybe I'll go back and play those games because I had the original Shenmue on Dreamcast and I liked it quite a bit. But then the ending was so anticlimactic, and I was so upset with that. I refused to touch the second one when I had access to it. And when I look at Yakuza and I play Yakuza Zero, it's like Shenmue but fun. That's why I hate to say it, but that's Yakuza feels more fun than
Well,
Shenmue.
it's because I think part of that is because even though Kiryu doesn't talk too much, what he does say has meaning. It's kind of like Silent Bob to that end. He's like, he doesn't say a lot, but when he says something, there's purpose behind it most of the time, unless there's this, it's one of the silliness quests.
The side
But,
quest, yeah,
he's to quote Family Guy, he's that badass with a heart of gold.
yeah, that's 100% what
And
the character is.
he's constantly thrown into these circumstances. I'm sorry to spoil, but it's basically every game where he's framed for something, right?
Yeah,
And I mean, it's not every game, but it's pretty constant throughout the series. That's sort of the archetype of the franchise is Kiryu gets framed for something. Even though he's a criminal, he didn't do this crime. So you have
yeah.
to prove his innocence or something, right?
That's the weird thing with this, because yeah, he is a criminal. He's a mafia member. I mean, these are not good people. These are people that exploit and injure and hurt. I mean, there's not much in the way of murder in these games because it's Japanese society is not as thankfully he's not as bad when it comes to murder as over here in North America. But he's definitely still a
Yeah.
criminal, still doing awful, bad, terrible things from prostitution and worse, but they make you feel bad for the character because of what happens to him in this game. Like he gets framed for murder of somebody so critically important to in basically a father figure, and you feel bad for him. They make you feel guilty, which is very strange to feel bad about a mafia member.
Yeah. But I mean, they repeatedly show that it's weird because he's willing to toe the line to break the law, but there's certain things he won't do, right? And I
Right.
think it's weird because he's a mobster with morals, which is so odd. But
Yeah, I mean, they definitely play off the mystique of Yakuza, right? Because Yakuza movies, right, in Japan, especially kind of play on this honor amongst thieves type of mentality where, yes, they're mafia, yes, they extort people, but there's a code of what they do as an organization. Like the protection money racket has a very codified number of rules, right? And they kind of play into that. They romanticize it a heck of a lot, which for, I
well,
guess, maybe North America feels weird.
yeah, to a degree. But I mean, we also have all sorts of mob movies, mafia movies where depending on the movie, you might feel for some of the characters in it, even though they're awful people. Like, I love the
Right.
movie Goodfellas, and Ray Liotta's character, yeah, he's a pretty bad dude, but he's not as bad as some of them. So you kind of feel
Right.
for him, and it's that same sort of thing. It's just I feel like Yakuza is a little bit more covert about how they do it, whereas the mob is
Yeah.
just like, yeah, we're all trash men, you know. I know. I'm like very painting broad strokes here, but you get my point.
But that's what it is, right? It's I guess that's the same with like Sopranos or Oz from back in the day. Yeah, you feel bad,
Mhm.
even though they're bad people or bad characters. You still feel bad for them. They do a good job of trying to tie into the humanity of that's in everybody, and they definitely do that here, especially with because this game is notable not just because it's Kiryu's story, but it's also the origin of a recurring
Majima.
character in the franchise, Majima. So you're gonna have to explain this one to me because I know of Majima mostly from the memes and his laugh, like, and I know him as the bad guy in later games. 'Cause I've only played Zero. Zero is the only one I played. I just started Kwame One, so but I heard that Majima's one of the bad guys later on. But this is a game where they give you his origin story, and I really like this character, and I don't feel like he's a bad guy.
So, calling Majima a bad guy is also painting him incorrectly. He is the closest thing that Kiryu has to a rival.
Right.
And so it's not necessarily he's a villain. He's just often at odds with Kiryu for various reasons. And, sometimes it's a completely understandable, justifiable reason. Sometimes it's just because he wants to be contradictory to Kiryu. Like,
He just has to be a rival, has to stir shit up. Yeah.
but
Okay.
I mean that in that same vein, he's also despite, after Yakuza 0, he's kind of a madman, right? He's called the Mad Dog Majima, and he's kind of a wild card. You don't know what he's going to do. But when push
Right.
comes to shove, he does step up in some of the installments to help Kiryu,
Okay.
even though Kiryu kind of thinks that he might not. He still takes a chance on him, and Majima's like, "All right, but you owe me." Because even Majima, and I feel like that's part of what Yakuza Zero's point was to paint Majima in a way to where you understand why he's willing to step up and be honorable despite being kind of a nut job.
He's totally psycho. Yeah, especially but toward the end of the game when you get like the end of the game, spoilers, but that's what this is. If you have not played Zero, go play it. But by the end of it, when he gets the haircut, he gets the distinctive jacket, you're like, okay, that's the character I've seen in screenshots from later in the series. But when you
Yeah.
start Yakuza Zero, it's is it his story first or is it Kiru? Kiru. I'm gonna say his name wrong the entire episode. I'm trying to remember now.
I
Is Majima
think it
first, I
was
think?
my no, it is Kiryu first because it opens up with Kiryu in uh oh my
Right.
goodness, I can't remember the name of the cities.
Camaracho. Camaracho?
Kamurocho, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna say these all wrong so badly.
Yeah,
I'm not
so it opens
Japanese.
up in Kamurocho with Kiryu being approached by his boss about something, I think is what it was, and you do a little bit of running around. And you only
Yeah.
get like a little while, maybe 20, 30 minutes as Kiryu before it drops you over on Majima in I know it's supposed to be Osaka, but I can't think of what that one's called.
Is it Otenbury? No.
That
Okay,
sounds right.
but it's basically two cities, and you get like a snapshot of each city. So yeah, so I guess to go back to the starting and the origin of the game and what the basic plot of this game is, it opens up with basically Kiryu basically doing a shakedown of somebody who owes money to the Yakuza. Or actually it's not even Yakuza. He owes money to like a a broker booker or what do you call them people? A bookie or something like that. Like
Yeah,
a money
Bookie.
collector, a bookie. So and he's basically he hires the Yakuza to, go rough this guy up and get the money back, in which Kiryu does and gives the money, turns down a job offer to work for the bookie. He's like, no, man, I'm Yakuza through and through. I want this life, I kind of do my own thing. And then shortly after, you find out that the person he roughed up in that back alley, on that specific back alley, was later murdered, and they're blaming him for it. And murder, again, in Japan, especially in the 80s, murder is incredibly rare. It's almost impossible to get a gun back then. Even today, it's very restrictive to get a gun in Japan. They have very tight gun laws, and murder is almost unheard of. Even if they're despicable, they're criminals, they're terrible people, you're likely to get hit with a baseball bat than you are shot with a gun in Japan, and that's something that's
Yeah.
not too uncommon. Like I think UK is similar. So he gets framed for murder. So his side of the story is him dealing with this, basically, his relationship with his Yakuza house. How do they call it?
Clan.
Family? Clan or family? Yeah. So his side of it. And then it flips over to Majima, and you're like in a full tuxedo. Majima's in a full tuxedo working at what is a cabaret club, I guess?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you fast learn that he's not there by choice. He's there because he's trying to make up for it's basically a punishment for a mistake that he made in his past. But then
Mhm.
it's great that that's the origin of his story. Like you know of him as a psycho in later games, but when you play Zero, the prequel, he's dressed up in a suit and tie. He's very reputable. He handles like issues with a customer, like flawless customer service. It's like almost as if customer service is a weapon for him, and it's such an interesting scene.
Yeah, he's sort of malicious compliance, but
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
yeah. So you in most of the games, I think Kiryu goes back and forth between oh my gosh, Kamurocho and Sotenbori.
That's what it
But
is.
yeah, I looked it up. And then in this one, instead, Kiryu is the entire time in Kamurocho, and Majima is the entire time in Sotenbori. And
Right.
so they split it up between the characters, and they throw some interesting little game mechanics at you like that, where you are sort of like investors in each other, but you don't know each other because of this third
Right.
party guy that they're both working through. And I thought that was interesting. And
Oh,
the
is that
mini games
that's
in
the real
this,
estate game that you're talking about?
yeah, like it was the real estate game, and also was it only no, because you could send money both ways
Can
depending
you?
on how you
I'm trying
did
to
it.
remember 'cause
Like there
I
was,
did I did a little bit of the real estate game for Kiru, but I didn't do much of the mini games for Majima. I did a little bit of the Cabaret Club mini game, but I wasn't sure it
yeah.
tied together with the two cities. That's interesting. I think you could do real estate agent deals in both, though. I guess.
I mean, it's been a few years since I played. I unfortunately didn't do any brushing up for this episode. I'm going purely on memory from like
Okay.
3 years ago. So, but I loved this game. I played the crap out of it. Like I was streaming this because I was actively streaming on Twitch at the time. And after the stream would end, I would go around and do the little stuff like for the business,
Yeah.
the cabaret, the real estate, all that crap, get that done. So that way I'd have more access to more money so that the next stream I'd be able to purchase more upgrades and things like that and speed up the process of playing the game rather than doing all the side crap on stream.
Actually, it's funny you mention that because one of the first mini games you come across in the game, and it's within like the first, I feel like the first hour and a half or 2 hours, is the slot car racing with Kiru. Like you walk into this place and there's a very grown up adult guy surrounded by kids, and they have a slot car racetrack system, and it's deeper than you would think. As you all
It
you can
is.
do when you do the slot racing is you have a car and you put it on the track and it kind of goes on its own like it does, but you have the opportunity to do one boost the entire damn time. And I think if you're going around a corner and you might fall off, you can button press to stay on the track. Very limited controls, but you can customize your car with parts you find in there or in stores or drops from various places. Like it's hilariously deep how much you can customize your car to get the optimum build for each track. Because some tracks are
Yeah.
like off-roading, some are like, a lot of jumps and loops, another one's just pure speed, and you have to customize your car. Literally, it forces you for each of those tracks to win. I spent a good few hours playing through that and finishing it off. Like that was pretty engrossing, and that was in the first 4 or 5 hours of the gameplay. It was nuts.
Yeah, I would every chance I got to push through that quest line and upgrade that mini game stuff, I would go for it because it was interesting, and they sort of attach you to a bunch of characters through the side quests and mini games in Yakuza 0 that if you've played through the franchise up through this point and now you've gone back and played Yakuza 0 as a prequel, there's so many nods to future games between
Okay.
who ends up being a villain in a later game and he's just a bully in this one, or, stuff like that. There's major players from throughout the franchise in Yakuza 0, and you get to see them like 10, 20 years before their appearance in the games as what they are then, and it's a cool throwback. But for me, it was the other way. I played through Yakuza 0, and then as I started playing through the others, I
Yeah.
was like, "I remember that guy from 0."
I was gonna say because yeah, our perspective is different because I haven't played the other games really. So for me to see this is my introduction to these characters. So it kind of colors things differently. I almost wonder if I should have played Kwame 1 and 2 first, then gone back to 0. But I think I'm fine with 0. At least it got some backstory and history of the characters. But it's such an interesting tie. Like it's such a franchise. Like you're talking hundreds of hours in this franchise. It's not short. It's funny because like I
Yeah.
wanted to play this, so there's a the 7 and 8 are out, and they don't star Kiryu, and they're actually different types of games. They're actually more of a JRPG versus this one being more of a brawler. And like I heard, well, you don't need to play Yakuza 1 through 6 or 0 through 6. You can just start with 7 because it's a different genre, different character. But I'm like, no, you know what? I'm gonna stop. I want the full history. I want to play it from the very beginning. I'm gonna be that guy, and I'm gonna start from the very beginning with 0, and we'll see how far I get because I really want to play 7. But 0
That
was
was my
good. Yeah.
that was my intent. I don't remember if I finished 3. I think I did. I think I finished 3 and then I meant to start 4.
Right. Yeah. So like I went through 0. 0 also was I think it's one of the longer entries in the franchise. It's up there. It's not as long as
It
5
is.
was, but I think it's still like pushing 35, 40 hours. I want to say 38 hours is what it took me to beat this
I
game.
put so many hours into that game. It's stupid doing all
Yeah.
the side quests, and I didn't even do all the side quests. I just did a
Yeah.
bunch of them. Like whenever I came across one that seemed interesting, I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." When Majima comes across the cult, absolutely, let's go kick some cult ass.
Was that with Majima? Oh, I
It
must have
was.
missed that one. I
It was
must
in
have missed that
Sotembori.
one. Oh shoot. Okay. All right. I missed that one then because like there is an exhaustive amount of side quests and they are good. Like when we say side quests, I was joking about Shenmue earlier how it's boring, and I found Shenmue boring because there'll be multiple steps to a story or quest in Shenmue, and it's usually involves waiting at the clock, playing Hang On, waiting on the clock, petting the cat, waiting the clock, and then going
Yeah,
back, only to be told to come back the next day. Like that part used to be really frustrating. Whereas in Yakuza, like there's most side quests. I think the longest side quest is like 3 steps that I came across. They're very short, and they're very much a joke or like to lighten up the atmosphere because the main story in this with the murder and the framing and Majima's origin is pretty dark.
yeah,
So when you have the side quest of like it was like a band, a guy's a band leader for like a 1940s 50s greaser style band, and he's supposed to look tough, and he's not. It's a fraud, and you're supposed to coach him on how to be tough because you're a gangster. Like stuff like that. That tone has always been really funny, and there's a lot of those, and they're all kind of like that funny tone. It's interesting.
yeah. There's the quests where they play matchmaker with people, or there was the guy who got a cell phone, right? It's one of the first cell phones on the market. And he's making this huge deal about it. And he's like, "You want to make a phone call with my cell phone? Well, do this for me first." And I don't even remember what the result of it was, why I was trying to make the phone call. But
So it's
I
funny.
was
It's
like, this
funny.
is it's
It's
so
funny
absurd
because
that I was drawn in.
yeah, it's absurd. But it's funny because in this game, I don't know how it is in the other games. You have to tell me. But in this game, to save, you need to use the phone, and it takes place in the 80s. There is no cell phone, so in order to save the game, you actually have to go to a phone booth every single time,
Yeah.
which can be frustrating. If I remember the end of that quest, there's several steps of it. By the end of it, I think you can just basically go to him at that location and save on his cell phone whenever you want. So it unlocks a save point,
Oh,
I think. But it's not like you get to carry around with you. But it's funny that it's like a briefcase of a cell phone because it's the 80s, right? And it's such a funny thing. But could you save anywhere in the other games?
uh, I think possibly. I feel like I didn't have to run around and hunt for save points in later games.
If that's the case, that's an hilarious commitment to a bit in that you can't save without a phone and you have to use a payphone to save the game is funny. That's
Yeah.
pretty wild. Yeah. Because that's where you also stored your you had an inventory box there as well. You could store items there. Although I didn't really have much of an issue
Yeah.
with inventory
And
management in this game, but yeah.
and in later games, your inventory stuff is all in your phone. So in the first game,
Okay.
you've got a flip phone and it opens up and you like have your contacts in there, you have your inventory in there, all that. It's all handled through your
Your
phone.
cell phone.
So
Okay.
the fact that they put it all in the stupid payphone booths,
That's good.
I mean, it's funny if you haven't played them before. If you've played them before, it's funny because like, oh man, I'm in the 80s. Now I'm limited to the technology that was in the 80s to match the mechanics they built throughout the franchise, right?
That's
So
pretty
in
good.
that sense, it's funny. So with Zero being my first game in the franchise, I didn't think anything of it. I was like, it's kind of inconvenient to have to run off to a phone booth
Yeah.
to handle these things, but whatever. Then in the later games, it was like, yeah, just open your phone.
Just save where you want. Yeah, especially when you consider this game came out years after the franchise originated, because it's just wild. Because this was PS2, I think the first game came out originally on PS2.
Yeah,
So
the
it's
first
been going for years.
2 were on PS2, 3, 4, and 5 were on PS3, and then Kiwami 2, 0, and 6 are PS4 era.
Right. Okay. But I mean, one of the inconveniences with the payphone thing was we can maybe segue into it. Is there's a character named Mr. Shakedown, and there's one in each city. He's different. He's different than, and there's one in each district, I guess. And all his role is, and they introduce him in a funny way, but his whole role and his reason for being is to roam the streets. And if you bump into him, he challenges you to a really difficult fight. And if you lose, and I lost a lot, he takes all your money. He
Yeah.
basically shakes you down and steals all your money. And that's kind of like the subtle encouragement to take the money you get and spend it on your skills every single time, and not
Mhm.
and not hang on to it. Otherwise, you're going to lose it. So I'm assuming he's in the later games as well.
I think he does make appearances in later games. I don't remember exactly how he worked in the future ones. Um, but I feel like I remember him not being only exclusive to 0.
Okay. Did you beat him at all? Because I know it's possible, but I never managed to do it.
Yeah, I got a lucky win on him pretty early, so I got a good chunk of money out of him that way. And then I did lose to him a number of times until I finally unlocked some certain skills, and then it was pretty consistent that I was able to beat him after that. But
Okay.
a lot of times I would still just avoid him because the amount of money you get from beating him by the time it's easy to beat him is not
It's
really
like
worth the
peanuts.
effort to
Yeah.
beat him.
Yeah. Because like my struggle was like, okay, I need to go save. So I round a corner and I really want to save. And he's sitting right next to the phone booth. Like if he's sleeping, it's okay. I can sneak across and save. But if he's awake, I don't want to go anywhere near him because I lost a lot of money that way. It's interesting. I mean, later on you get so much of it, and so for those who have not played Yakuza 0, you get piles and piles of yen in this game through combat. And the more brutal and aggressive you are in combat, I think the more money you get is how it works.
To a degree, yes. It also depends on who you're fighting. So, if you fight a couple of street thugs, that you're not going to get nearly as much money as if you're fighting the dude in the gold suit, because he's
Oh, I
just
forgot about
loaded with
him.
cash.
Literally a piggy bank. Yeah, yeah, I remember that. Isn't he the guy who
I
teaches
actually
you
got
the
to a point.
move?
What's that?
Isn't he the guy who teaches the move where you throw the money in the air to distract the enemies, and that's your escape mechanic? I think that was him.
Yeah. I don't remember who taught you that. Well, because it wasn't just one guy in a gold suit. It was a bunch of, like, you just run into a random guy in a gold suit who was just supposed to
Right.
be a young rich guy who was flaunting his cash, and so he all of a sudden he's like, "Yeah, I'm a tough guy. I'll kick your ass," and then he loses pretty easily most of the time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he's a mark. It's funny because like by the time you meet the guy who's like tells you how to make it rain, you're probably fed up with the combat encounters. So you run into him and he's like, "Oh, you don't want to fight? Just throw money in the ground," and it distracts him. And I use that quite a bit. And you lose a little bit of money, but not you
yeah,
save time, which is nice. It's funny. I forgot about the guys in the
it's
gold
it.
suit.
But yeah, there's something funny about this game that kind of doesn't fit with the franchise to a degree. Is as you go through the games, there's always the statement of, "Oh, Kiryu would never hurt anybody," like, not he'd never kill anybody, basically, is the idea, right? And there's
Yeah.
also, and he wouldn't. Theoretically, he wouldn't. His character is always like, take care of the kids, beat the shit out of shitheads, and don't kill anyone, right? Kind of the way he is. And so the whole Yakuza 0 is he's framed for murder. And the whole franchise is, oh, he would never kill anybody. He'd never kill anybody. And then there's a point in Yakuza 0 where you're being chased down the freeway. You got a rocket launcher and you're shooting helicopters out of this guy. I'm pretty sure dude's died.
Non-violent rocket launchers. Totally a non-violent hug with rockets that explode. Yeah, it's I forgot about the helicopter scene. That helicopter scene is pretty brutal. But even outside of that, just the day-to-day combat you do, like, okay, sure, they stand up and get up off the ground after combat and they usually apologize to you for getting in your way. But the combat itself, especially with beast mode, which is like there's different styles, and one of them is beast style, and it involves picking up any heavy object in the fight
Oh,
area
it
and
was
you
my favorite.
slam it into people. Yeah, it is brutal. Like there's one where you're fighting and then I just grab, I don't know, a scooter, like a moped, and you just slam it into the guy's head on the ground and there's blood and teeth flying out of him everywhere. Or like Majima with the baseball bat, the slugger style, where you're they're on the ground, they're half conscious, and Majima tees them up for a swing and just wails on their face. And then after combat,
Yeah.
it's okay. They stand up and they apologize to you. It's
Uh,
comically
I
violent.
I always thought that was great. And Yakuza 0 set me up for so much excitement, but also so much disappointment for what came next because it's so far into the franchise as a work that
Right.
the mechanics have evolved a lot. So I would imagine Yakuza 5 and or maybe Yakuza 6 since it came after is
Yeah.
very similar to 0 in terms of combat mechanics. But, going into Kiwami and Kiwami 2, I felt like the combat was a lot more limited, which
Okay.
was kind of a bummer. Like not bad, just there was in Yakuza 0 you get used to picking up motorcycles and slamming them into people. I called them motorcycle hugs. And like this
So
game is
that's
where Get Hugged started because it was just like you'd start by like grabbing people, hugging them, and killing them, and then it became picking up bicycles and mopeds and motorcycles. So those all became hugs
right. That's funny.
in my stream. And
I
you get into Yakuza Kiwami, and you aren't able to pick up the big giant things like that anymore. I think the biggest thing you can pick up
Oh.
is a motorcycle or a bicycle. So
Oh,
you
that's
don't
different. That's
have this beast
disappointing.
mode.
Okay.
But I don't know, to a degree, part of it kind of makes sense. He's younger and more capable, like probably stronger in 0 than he would be in the later ones. Especially I
Kiwami
think
1, his
Yakuza
back is sore.
in in 1, he's already what, like 36, 38, something like that,
Yeah,
because he
he's
just
up
spent
there.
over 10 years in prison, right?
Right.
And like that's how the original Yakuza opens. Is it like it starts with a thing, Kiryu goes to prison for like 10 years and then he gets out and then the game starts. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
0 takes place before all of that. And so he's younger, he's out on the streets, he's kicking people's ass all the time. Maybe he's strong enough to pick up a motorcycle then and he's not later. But
It's well, I'll never forget the one quest. I can't remember if it was Majima or Kiru, but you have to track down a lady who's operating. It's not prostitution, but it's like a panty selling ring or something like that. And you're going asking all these different girls trying to find the one that matches the description, and the ones that are not the right target always do something funny. And one of them's like, "Huh? Excuse me? I do what now?" And then her boyfriend strolls up the side of the street, and he's like, "Did you just accuse my girlfriend of this?" So you end up doing a fight with her boyfriend and a couple of his buddies, and you beat the shit out of him with a baseball bat or bikes or whatever. You kick the crap out of him, teeth, blood, the whole 9 yards. And then it ends, and he's like, "It's a misunderstanding," and you shake on it, and move on your merry way. Just the the black and white between brutal, violent combat and like, "Oh, it's okay. He apologized after. We're good. Don't worry about it. It's fine."
yeah,
It's so funny, and I don't. I guess this is what they intended, but it's just such a violent world, and they make so much fun of it. It's such a weird thing.
yeah, it's very casual violence, right?
Yeah, but it's
And
funny. I Mhm.
and that's the solution to just about everything in the game is, what, somebody stole your purse? Let me kick their ass.
Violently with a
Somebody
baseball bat. Yeah.
somebody's got a cult going, kick their ass.
No, it's pretty
Somebody bumped
wild.
into me, they're gonna fight me, so I gotta kick their ass.
And there's a lot of it. You go through hundreds of battles in this game. Like combat is frequent. And like I don't think I ever got tired of it because I didn't mind the combat. I mean, I don't think the combat is, super amazing or anything like that, but it was always fun. I especially liked Majima with the baseball bat because some attacks you had to time the button press for different moves, or if you're running and you do a swing, you do a nice cartwheel with the baseball bat. I mean, it wasn't just A B for attacking. Like there was definitely combos, there's definitely secret moves and hidden moves with that. It was interesting. And then you each one had, I think, 4 styles. I think Kiro might have a 5th style if I'm not wrong. I didn't get it though.
Yeah, he
So
did have a
combat was
fifth style that you
interesting,
have to unlock.
right? So you're saying that in Kiwami 1 and 2, and I guess later on in the franchise, it still has that kind of combat, but I guess the mechanics aren't as deep.
Um, it's just different. it doesn't feel as open-ended for the player to sort of choose how they want to fight. Instead, you're
Okay.
kind of narrowed into like, this is how Kiryu fights, and you can unlock these moves or these moves or these moves. Whereas in Zero, it's like Kiryu could fight like this, he could fight like that, he could fight like that, he could do this, what like which style you like, and then unlock
Right.
moves from there. Right.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because then Zero is neat because if you want to be like a, burly tank type character who defends from any angle, you can be that. If you play fast and do like, Caporia style where you're rolling around the ground, you can do that with Majima. Like there's different variety in the combat. And like I know you're probably better off using a variety of styles, but I think I got through this game just using beast mode and slugger style for the two
Oh, yeah,
characters.
I was beast mode most of the time. I was slugger style most of the time. Um, that there were times where I had to switch it up and do something different because a certain fight wasn't working for me or whatever. But for the most part, it was just those. And I don't want to say like the combat feels lacking in Kiwami or Kiwami 2 or subsequent entries. It's just that Yakuza 0 let you have so much fun with the combat
Right.
that you kind of have to temper your expectations going into Kiwami afterward. So the combat's
Yeah.
still fun, it's still interesting, but like I said, you don't get the over the top stuff like throwing motorcycles at people. It's just not a thing. But
Yeah.
most of the feel of the combat is still there as you go through the franchise. So, like, Zero is a great entry point to really suck you in because of what it's got going on in it. But then you also have to reel in your expectations for the next so many games for certain aspects because, Kiwami and Kiwami 2 are remakes of 1 and 2. So they're massively
Right.
updated, but it's still not the same degree that Zero got. And
Right.
then, when you play through 3, 4, and 5, they're just remasters of the PS3 games. So those are going to feel even more dated than Kiwami 1 and 2. But
Yeah, I'd heard
I
that
mean,
3
I
especially was kind of a bit rough to go back to now. Like a lot of the stuff that was approved on later on is not there in 3. I heard 4 and 5 were okay. 5 I heard was quite long with many multiple characters to play. So I'm kind of interested in that one. But I know 3 might be a bit of a hump when I get to that.
I mean, like I said, I do believe I beat 3 and it wasn't bad. It was a little slow, but it's telling a new type of story. Like it leaves Kamurocho, it leaves Sotenbori, and it goes down to the southern island of Japan. So I don't remember what they call the region, but I think the southern
Right.
island is Honshu. Um,
Okay.
can't remember for sure, but it's the little resort island that's off the southern tip of Japan. Like that's where it takes
Okay.
place. So, you spend a lot of time on the beach side with your little orphanage of children. And
Right, I heard about that. Yeah, because again, Kiryu has a heart of gold, even if he
yeah,
kills people brutally.
well, I mean, as you go through the franchise, he tries to get out of the Yakuza repeatedly.
Right.
So, and it it never takes for long is the problem with him.
Yeah, it's an interesting game, and like I think for the combat, as fun as I had in Zero, I don't think that has to be that can't be the focus on why you want to play these games. I think for me the focus is more on the story that they're telling and some background on
Mhm.
the characters because in the world because I want to play the later games of the franchise, and that's why I'm playing with these earlier ones. So it's not necessarily the combat; it's the story. So I think if I did do I did start Kwame 1. I think I put the difficulty down to easy if I'm not wrong. I played through most of Zero on normal. Uh, although the first fight was an FU, I'd put that to easy. But I think the later games I might just put it to easy so I can go through the storyline. I think is what I'm going to do.
So yeah, the original game came out for PS2 in 2006. 2005 in Japan. So that's the early part of it. But like you were talking about how they sort of romanticize, the whole Yakuza culture, I guess. I don't know what you want to call it, but
Yeah.
even the original Yakuza, it got a movie adaptation
Did
in
it really?
Japan. Yeah, it's called Like a Dragon.
Oh,
And
that's
it's
funny.
about Yakuza and Majima or about Kiryu and Majima.
Interesting. Okay.
And
I have
so
to
it
check that
tells the
out.
story of the first game.
I wonder how if that movie's aged well. I'm gonna have to check that out because like a lot of this game feels like it's based in like movies that romanticize the Yakuza and stories and stuff to begin with. So it's interesting that it itself got a movie adaptation. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay.
So as far as length of this, how long did it take you to go through Yakuza 0?
I want to say it was like 35, 38 hours at the most, and I didn't do
Okay.
nearly 100%.
Okay, because I'm looking at how long to beat here. Main story says 31 and a half hours.
Okay.
Main plus sides says 64 and a half hours. I think I came in around 83, but I did a lot of side stuff.
Yeah. I
And
I can
then,
believe it. Yeah.
what do you think it says for completionist?
Completionist, like everything, every mini game, every car race, the cabaret to get to buy every club and to run every club. It's got to be like 100 hours.
It says 142 hours.
142. God, I can't even imagine what would be the big time sink in this one then.
There's a lot of side quests, a lot of them.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a
And
bunch.
like there's a lot of money sinks in the game, so you like even after you max out the real estate game and the cabaret game, there's tons of money to spend. There's tons of things to spend that money on that you earn
Okay.
rather than just reinvesting it to make money faster. And then, there's items to find. There's just so many mini games. There's like I think there was the virtual golf, there's the batting cages.
Oh, you know
There's
what it is? I bet you the biggest time sink has got to be the so Kiryu is fine, it's just his fists, his weapons, but Majima actually has a weapon system and there's crafting in it, and to craft items you need to get parts. And the way they handle getting the parts is you go to a Chinese restaurant and there's a husband wife couple there that run it, and on the side of the restaurant their business is to send out agents globally to get crafting items for you, and there's a whole setup to that. I don't know if you remember that part at all or not, but
I
there's
do.
there's dozens of items in that you can collect to get
I
crafted.
had completely forgotten about that, but then you bring that up and now I remember, yes.
Yeah.
You'd send out like, okay, how much money do I want to invest in this to make sure of its success? And then, depending on how much money you put into it, it changes the percentage of success, the percentage of critical success, the percentage of failure, and all that. And so, if you get a critical success, all of a sudden it's like, man, that was fantastic. You got this and this and this and this and this and this and this, right?
Yeah. Like the
Then if you
presentation was so
didn't put in
flashy,
enough
like
money,
Charlie's Angels type of thing or something, where it's
yeah,
like agent encountered, a stray dog, got bit, or found a stray dog, but dodged it, or ran into so and so shopping cart. Like there's different event text. It's not animated well. It's just text and some
yeah,
postcards of the journey to get the item. But all of this just for basically obtaining crafting resources is really funny. Like a lot of this game, it feels really funny.
yeah. And then, there's trading cards to find, I believe, and they're all like
Yes,
trading
but
cards,
trading
right?
card of what though? Do you want to say what they're for?
Uh phone call services.
Yeah. We're sorry, YouTube. That's what they're for.
That's
But
about as far
that's
as we'll go into that, I think. Phone call
yeah.
services.
I do. You know what's funny? Kind of related to that is there are tissues in the game. I'll leave it that.
Yes.
But there's a reason for them. And the first time I tried playing this game a couple of years ago, I didn't realize what they're for. But the reason for tissues is that one of the side stories involves like a random beat cop who patrols the city. And if you run into him, he's very polite and very nice, but he always, suspects Kira of doing no good and being involved in crime. So he has to do a search on you and find contraband of some kind. So he always, when you run into him, you have to give him some kind of item for your inventory. So that's why you always keep the cheapest item, which is tissues, on you, and you give it to this guy. And that's what I realized they're for, is to give the tissues to give to the cop so he leaves you alone. I thought that was funny when I realized what they're for.
Yeah. Because I think your inventory capacity is like 10 or 11 items, and every time or maybe
Yeah.
14, something like that. It's not big. And every time you run into him, he's like, you look like you're up to no good. Give me something out of your pockets. And you
And
give
like
him a
in my
tissue or a
pockets,
bottle of water or some random
yeah.
crap that's harmless. And he's like, all right, you're fine. Get on your way.
Which is funny because like outside of that, I mean, the only thing in my inventory is a bunch of energy drinks and food items. There's nothing really else in the game that you need to get really. Like you get items you can
Well,
equip on your character, but nothing illegal really.
yeah, but I mean, the energy drinks can be pricey depending.
Yeah,
And
and you don't want to
then
lose them. Yeah,
there I think I remember points where I just was loaded with power-ups and stuff, things that, either I didn't want to lose or if I hand it over to the cop, it's a no-no. So,
yeah, yeah. No, for sure. And that's I guess for people who have not played this game, that's basically your health recovery. That's your potions in this game is energy drinks. And I remember that I'll remember that because the opening of this game, because of the save system, and even though there's checkpoints, the beginning of the game is not favorable to new players. I'll put it that way. And the opening, there's a scene early on where you have to go through I'm not going to call it a dungeon, but you enter an office and you have a series of fights back to back. And I struggled with that because you don't have any healing items because you don't think to buy them, and there's very few in that whole sequence. And like you ended up with a boss fight, and I every single time I tried it, I'm screwed because I don't have any energy drinks to get my life back up.
yeah, I will say, like, this game really nails the idea of, like, when it's coming up to the end of a chapter, things get heavy and
Yeah,
intense, and it's just a blast to play because now all of a sudden you're just barreling through an army of people kicking ass left and right while they're shooting at you, they're throwing stuff at you, you're getting
yeah.
tag teamed by tons of guys, and you're just like, I'm just gonna run through all of you and beat you all up. Let me throw a couch at that guy. Let me.
Was it there's one
It's
sequence where you're in a sewer, and when you come against the boss, it cuts to a cutscene of the boss in a sewer is driving a motorcycle at you in a sewer, and he jumps off it, and you have a boss battle. It is pretty epic. You're right. The boss sequences and the lead up to those are pretty epic. There is one where you're at the clan headquarters, and it's like you're like, oh, it's you have a meeting with the clan chief or clan head, and it seems like it goes your way, but it still needs to be a fight. Still need to kick your ass, and they don't throw like one or two bad guys at you. It's like dozens of enemies at you. The room
yeah,
is full of guys you got to beat up on.
and if memory serves, this is the one where a giant castle comes up out of the ground.
A castle?
Wasn't there a giant castle that came up out of the ground, or was that in a different one? Because that
You
happened
you
in one of them. I thought that was in Zero.
The clan
Because
headquarters of the family headquarters is like a very old style Japanese castle like
no, no,
looking
no, no.
structure.
No, no, no. There was like this massive gold castle that came up out of the ground, and I thought it was the one time
I don't think
where
so.
Kiryu went down to Sotenbori in the game, and he was going to visit that other clan headquarters. And so this big castle, like the ground sort of opened and a castle rose out of the ground.
Really? That's funny. No, I
Yeah,
don't think that's this game. Like that's the
it
kind of
might have
humor
been
where there's
Kiwami,
a
but
lot of that in 7 because like the character in that game has like a delusional imagination, right? Where he's always imagining things like that. But not in 0. I don't remember that at all. I'll have to take a look.
uh oh, okay, my bad. That's Kiwami. That's Yakuza 2 and Kiwami 2.
Okay, so that's later on.
But
Yeah,
yeah, you
most of the
get
set pieces
these
of this game are like
there's
corporate office
moments like that.
buildings, alleys, sewers, like like it's wild how like parks and stuff. I always love the battles because it's not just two or three guys. Like sometimes it is, but the big set pieces, dozens and dozens and dozens of enemies. Like the screen filling. It feels like what's that game? What's that franchise? Three Kingdoms, I think is the franchise where it's like beat 'em
Oh,
up on a grand scale. I think it's Three Kingdoms,
oh,
where there's
Dynasty
just
Warriors.
Dynasty Warriors. That's what it almost feels like. Not maybe to that scale. There's more depth to the combat than Dynasty Warriors, but there
Yeah.
are so many enemies on that screen, and it's not a cakewalk either. Like yeah, you want to grab a couch because the couch might take out two or three guys for a few seconds. It really does feel like it pushes you to your limits, but it feels satisfying beating some of those large battles.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, that's a recurring theme in Yakuza is you'll like all of a sudden you'll be somewhere and there's just this massive reveal of something huge and stupid that you would have never expected there, right? Like
Yeah.
I think Under the Park was the the gambling place. Like there was a casino and
The Fight Club.
the Coliseum Fight Club was
Yeah.
under the park, just in a bathroom
For
or
this one,
something like that.
it was a boat. You had to take a boat ride, and the boat went
That
underwater to
was
like a
that was the
hidden
one in
location.
Sotenbori because that would go over the in the canal and then like
Yeah,
drop down.
yeah, that's the
But
one I
there was
remember
also
doing that
one at
one.
the park for Kiryu, I believe.
Was there? I must have missed that one. See, I missed a lot of side stuff, but I remember that one with Majima because you go underground and there's a whole Fight Club thing, and it's like a big, huge arena, and it's like it's not something you take part in directly. Again, it's another mini game where you're kind of managing it. And if I remember right, it's a bunch of pretty women doing the fighting, and it's kind of out there. It's kind of maybe inappropriate, but it's funny.
Oh. No, in Yakuza 0 in Kamurocho, it's across the street from the big arcade in the big building. You go downstairs there. I think
Okay,
that's where the Fight Club was.
really, I missed that entirely
I don't know.
then. Man,
I'm
that
reaching
sucks.
back here, but yeah,
Okay,
there's stuff hidden all over this game. It's ridiculous.
yeah, like there's mini
There's
games
the
that are only used
bowling
like
mini game.
once. There's mahjong, and then there's mahjong, darts, and they're only in like one, maybe two places. And if you miss it, if you don't go in that building, you don't even see it, and they're just there. Like I spent a
Yeah,
good 45 minutes playing billiards just cause, right?
there's the discotheque. There's
Which which is DDR, right? Basically, kind of.
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
So, and then there's the karaoke mini game. There's just so many mini games. Gosh, I'm like, as I talk about them, I'm remembering more and more of them, and I'm like, holy crap, there were really a lot of these in this game.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of mini games in this. I mean, you can actually play, I think all the multiplayer mini games are available in the main menu when you unlock them. Because I think they had the expectation that some of these might be fun enough to play with friends. And you're not going to want to dive into your save file to do it. But they let you do that. I love that about this franchise. Again, it's the Shenmue influence. It has to be. There are so many
Yeah,
mini games in Shenmue, and there's twice as many in Yakuza. It's wild.
and even that, like in Yakuza, they put Sega arcade games in it too, and
Yep.
depending on, some of them are like legit mini games that they made for Yakuza that they just stick in there, and some of them are arcade games from the time that it takes place, right? Or
Yeah.
at least that would make sense at that point. So I think, yeah,
I have to
Yakuza
look it up.
0 had like 2 or 3. I think it had like Space Harrier and
I want to say hang on. Let me see. Yakuza 0 arcade games. Like they definitely have the claw machine, for example. You go into an arcade,
yeah,
there's a claw machine and you can get items from there, and there's a bunch of items to collect if you want to. But yeah, they have Space Harrier. Where is it? Whoa. Wiki, please. I love how it just
Space
gives you the whole
Harrier,
thing.
Fantasy Zone, Outrun, and Super Hang On.
That's what it was. Yeah. Space Fantasy Zone and Outrun. I think Fantasy Zone, this is the first time I played Fantasy Zone in like 20 years. It's because of this game. I'd forgotten that game existed.
So there weren't in the original Yakuza, but in Yakuza Kiwami, they have one called Mesu King Battlebug Beauties and one called Print Club. I don't remember those too much. Yakuza 2, they had one called YF6, which was a game that was supposed to be sort of like a fighting game, Final Fantasy sort of combination thing.
Okay.
That it was playing on the hype of those. And so that was in Yakuza 2. But in Kiwami 2, they actually stuck Virtua Fighter 2,
Okay.
Virtual On,
Really?
and a
I
game
love
called
that game.
Toilets. Toylets.
I don't think I played that one before.
But yeah, I was so excited that Virtual On and Virtua Fighter 2 were in Kiwami 2. It was awesome. And
Um,
then through a bunch of them, like through the Yakuza 3, 4, and 3 and 4, you get this game called Boxelios, and then Boxelios 2. Yakuza 5 got Virtua Fighter 2. Um, Taiko no Tatsujin, which I feel like I know the name, but I can't place it. And then 2 other games that are specific to Yakuza 5. And then Yakuza 6 gets Space Harrier, gets Fantasy Zone, it gets Outrun, it gets Super Hang On, Virtua Fighter 5. and
That's a
Puyo Puyo.
huge Virtual Fighter 5 as a mini game in
Right?
this is
Like,
pretty
that's
awesome.
just wild. Even
Like I
in
know 6
Judgment. Judgment has an arcade that you could play these games in.
really? Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
cuz like Yakuza
Space
6
Harrier.
came out in when? 2015 or something?
Yakuza 6, something like that. Yeah.
Cuz Virtual Fighter
But
5 was not that old when that game came out.
2010.
So that's like, yeah, 5, 6 years later. I mean, there's you got today in 2024, you would have somebody like Sega taking that game, Virtual Fighter 5, and selling it on the eShop for like, $20. The fact that it was a mini game in Yakuza 6 is funny. That's
It
wild.
Yeah, in Judgment as well. So Judgment also got Space Harrier, Fantasy Zone, Fighting Vipers, which is an underrated fighting game, period. So the
Yeah,
fact
I
that
love
that
that
made it
one.
into one of these games as an arcade play, that's great.
Yeah,
Motor
especially when we're in an
Raid.
era of arcade compilations. That's funny that this is a side thing that's just added for free. It's kind of like when Animal Crossing on the GameCube had a bunch of NES games just cuz. Even with the Animal Crossing on the Switch, they had nothing like that cuz they have
Yeah.
the virtual console for that, right? They make money off it. That's funny. Fighting Vipers is hilarious as a mini game.
Yeah,
That's awesome
Judgment
though.
also had
Yeah,
Virtua Fighter 5, Puyo Puyo, and it's the 2011 version of Puyo Puyo, by the way. So that one's only a few years old too. And
that's funny.
then Judgment got one called Commodore of the Dead, which sounds like it's House of the Dead kind of
But shooting. Well, you
joke
know what it
game,
is too
right?
is they probably using assets from the zombie game because like this franchise is pretty notable or notorious, I guess, however you look at it, for reusing assets, right? I mean, that's how they pump these games out every other year. Like these games come out pretty frequently. Like I think
Yeah. And
Judgment
it
2 just came out 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago now. It was not that long ago.
lost yeah, Lost Judgment. Oh man, so I know we're on another tangent, but I'm just having fun going through these arcade games that make appearances in the franchise now. So Like a Dragon basically has the same assortment as Judgment. Lost Judgment also gets Sonic the Fighters.
That's few people have played that game. That's actually pretty interesting.
Which I mean I have it on the GameCube in one of the Sonic collections that were on it. I don't remember which one it was.
Right.
Um, but then I think it was Sonic Gems. But then Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name, that one also got Sonic the Fighters, Virtua Fighter 2, Fighting Vipers 2. Wow.
That's pretty awesome too. Because
And
I mean,
then
Fighting Vipers 1 and 2 are also pretty old at that point. That's fun, but that's all like first and second gen like 3D fighters for Sega. That's the one thing I'm
yeah.
missing on the Mister on the machine behind me is like they've added so much to the Mister over the last few years, but I'm really hoping they can somehow manage to squeeze the Naomi arcade stuff on there. I don't know if it's possible, but they just did the N64, so who knows? But I love those Sega 3-button fighting games, like Fighting Vipers, like Fighters
Well,
Mega
those
Mix.
are
I'd love to
not
see.
Fighting Vipers and Megamix are not Naomi. I think those are the AM2.
Are they? Oh, then that's possible. We could have that on the Mister. I wonder because I'd love to play that early 3D stuff because it looks great even today. At least it looks better than PlayStation anyway. But I love those. Fighting Vipers is classic.
But what we were
Wow.
talking about, like you see these, the amount of games in the Yakuza franchise, like the outside games that Sega owns, finding their way in. The
Yeah.
number goes up and up and up and up as you go through the franchise. But then with Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, you got 3.
Yeah, because they probably
So
realized, well, Sega's got some plans, right? Because they've said they're going to take back a lot of their properties and do modern versions of them, right? So games like we could have
yeah,
maybe had a Crazy Taxi, but they got plans for that. They could have had Golden Axe, but they have plans for that now. So maybe they've learned to maybe dial back the freebies they're giving, I guess.
yeah. So all of a sudden in Infinite Wealth, you've got Virtua Fighter 3 TB, which Virtua Fighter 3 is probably the reason I don't play Virtua Fighter anymore because it was so slow. And
Okay.
Virtua Fighter is not the fastest fighting game.
Yeah, it's not.
And then Sega Bass Fishing,
What?
and because people playing Yakuza are super excited. Well, I mean, it's also not the same kind of beat 'em up game anymore, right?
No, it's more of a JRPG.
So,
Yeah,
and
maybe
then Spike Out, which is from 1998. So that sounds like it's
Spike Out.
probably a volleyball game or something.
Yeah, those are probably more thematic with the game because Infinite Wealth takes place in like Hawaii or something, from what I understand. So that makes more sense there.
Mm,
But still, I mean, it would have been nice to see that Hang On, Infinity Zone are still carried across, or like adding new Genesis era games to it would have been fun. Like, I mean, Sega's arcade stuff was fantastic back in the '80s and early '90s. I'd love to see that stuff shown off more.
yeah,
I guess that's funny.
but
3.
oh, apparently Spike Out is a brawler. But yeah, like it shows like Yakuza was such a strong force for Sega that they were just throwing like a 5-year-old game into it as a mini game. And now they're like, well, now it's doing so well, we're just gonna gouge with it, right? Which is an unfortunate turn of events for the franchise because they put New Game Plus behind an extra
Yeah,
purchase, and
I want to play
so
Infinite Wealth, but I mean the full
I'll
version,
wait.
which includes the season pass or whatever hell it is in the new game plus, it was like $93 or something ridiculous Canadian, like just before tax. It's a pricey game when you want everything. Not that I want to necessarily play these games with new game plus. I mean, the Zero has new
No,
game
but
plus, and I have no interest in going through Zero with new game plus. If anything, I would go back to my old save because I have everything unlocked, right? But I mean, I don't know if I'd want to start all over again. Well, I guess
yeah,
depends on
like
what's saved with New Game Plus.
I'm
You
kind
know.
of on the fence on that because I do have all of these up through 7 on my PS4, but I don't play on the PS4 as much anymore. So I'm like,
Right.
should I be playing these on my Steam Deck now? Because that's easy for me to do, to just pop on and play. But
Well, I
I
mean,
don't
that's the
know.
thing. Like, I've been wanting to play these games for years. Like I said, I wanted to play when you were streaming, but I mean, up until then, it was my desktop, and having to sit at my desktop after working 40 hours a week is not happening. But on the Steam Deck, Zero, it's just not that old of a game. Runs flawlessly on the Steam Deck. It plays great, runs great. It's not 150 gigs like some other games are these days. And that's the only reason why I got through it. And that's why I think I can actually beat the franchise over the next year or so, is because it's on the Steam Deck.
Yeah, and I love that the franchise is on Steam now because it was
Yeah.
originally just locked to PlayStation. So now the fact that it's on PC and a little more accessible, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like I'm surprised they put them on GOG.
There's been an opening up, I think, of Japanese houses kind of slowly porting their games to PC. Like Atlas is another one that I think now does a lot more PC ports than they used to in the past. They're still cagey about it, but they still do it. Capcom has been doing a lot of stuff on PC the last number of years and been doing really killer with it. Like, I mean, I don't think Resident Evil remakes would have been as successful if they weren't on PC, right? They sold really well on PC. But I think 10 years ago they wouldn't have considered the PC being a serious place for their games, I think. But that's definitely changed over
Yeah,
the years. Now, if only
but
Final
yeah,
Fantasy would go back to PC. Like it does, but it's always delayed now because they have an exclusive deal with Sony.
which I find weird. That's a whole other episode's topic, but I find
Yeah,
that weird since their sales have not met expectations for the last few releases that have been Sony exclusives. But
I know.
it couldn't be the fact that you're only releasing on PS5 that not enough people own yet to really sink into that being a good market share.
It's like, wouldn't it be better just to put it on everything? Wouldn't that make you more money? Like, what do I know? I mean, we're not business majors, maybe. I don't know. It's bizarre. But at least Yakuza gets released on everything. And I think it's simultaneous release. I don't think any of the recent ones have been exclusive to a console. I'm pretty sure Infinite Wealth was across the board on everything. I think the recent with Kiryu, like a dragon, something something face, or losing his name, that one was only a couple years
Manu
ago. I think
erased his
that was on
name.
everything. Man who erases his name, yeah. Judgment was on everything, I believe, too. So you can play these on any of the consoles and definitely on PC. Well, maybe not Xbox, actually, now that I think about it. I
Or
don't think
Switch.
these games, or Switch. Yeah, well, Switch is lucky it runs what it does, but I don't think they're on Xbox. So maybe they're console exclusive to Sony, but they're definitely on PC and they run great on PC. I do like how every time you spin up one of these games, the first screen you see, I think after the Sega logo, is that real Yakuza use a controller, just to hammer home. Yes, you're on PC, but we want you to use a controller to play these games. Don't use mouse and keyboard. Although you totally
That's
could,
funny.
but don't. I think that's funny.
Yeah, I've not seen that since I've only played on my PS4, but
Oh,
I
really?
was
They don't,
very
okay.
late to this
Yeah.
franchise. And
Yeah.
I mean, for people who are still have not played it, grab Yakuza 0 on sale. It goes on sale all the time. Grab it on
Yeah.
sale. test the waters. If you're not sure if you like Yakuza or not, test the waters with Yakuza 0. If you enjoy beat 'em ups at all and quirky games, you will probably like it. And, you can probably grab it for under you'd almost certainly grab it for under $10
Oh,
when it's on
easily.
sale. I think
Yeah.
it was $6 in the last sale you guys talked about.
Yeah, it was. I mean, $30 for six or seven games. Like that's insane, right? I mean, 3, 4 are only remasters. They're not remakes like Kwame 1 and 2, which are totally remakes, and then 0 is ground up brand new. And it's like so 7 and 8 are if you like the idea of this company and the story that they're telling with these 7 and 8 are different game styles. They're JRPGs and they are very good. And I've played a bit of 7. You don't need to play the original series to understand 7. It's a completely separate story. But if you want some history on the world over like the last 20 years of this franchise, you 0 is worth it. Like the story in 0 is legit good. It's a great story. It's not short. It's quite long. The side stuff is fun. The mini games are a blast. But the story is worth playing. Even if you won't play the game on easy because you're not a fan of beat 'em up combat, I think 0 is definitely worth playing. And then if you want to skip to 7, go for it. But I think 0 is definitely a must play.
Yeah, so 7 and 8 is where they changed up the style. It's kind of a tactical RPG, right?
It's like Final Fantasy. Or
Oh,
like
is
it's
it?
more
Like you actually
or
have a
like Dragon
party of
Quest.
like
Yes. It's
Oh,
it's
okay.
the
I
main
thought it was a tactical RPG.
No, no, no. The guy in 7 and 8, I can't remember Ichi-san, I think his name is, or whatever his name
Ichiban?
is. Ichiban. That's it. He's got overactive imagination and feels like everything is like Dragon Quest. He's like a fan of Dragon Quest RPGs. So like every character you meet in the game gets reimagined as a Dragon Quest character. So like, a guy's carrying a bag of trash, so suddenly he becomes like a trash wizard, like shit like that. It's funny. And you do have legit party members. Like the wizard in that game is a homeless dude you become friends with, and his spells are like he takes a swig of whiskey and shoots it out and it sets it on fire, so it's a flame attack. Like it's that weird humor of Yakuza, but it's a JRPG. It's legit entertaining. It's fun. I do like it, but I like how I got the background of the city and the world with 0 because I feel like that adds to the game, even though I don't necessarily need it. And you could start fresh with 7. I think it's worth playing 0 for that.
Interesting. I didn't realize that's how it was, where he's just got an overactive imagination, and so it's sort of like playing everything up as though it's
Yeah,
it's not what's actually happening, it's how he's imagining it's happening around him. So he's
yeah.
sort of like that childhood imagination of making things bigger and grander, and that's fun. I love that.
Like like when you're entering an office building or a sewer for like parting the quest, whereas in 0 it's like a combat encounter. In 7 it's more like they call, I think he legit calls them dungeons at some point. They're basically considered dungeons with a map, with items you can find in chests. Like it's very much treated like a Dragon Quest game, and it's funny for that. It's legit worth playing.
Huh.
It's a great game. Like 8 looks great too. I'm looking forward to it, but like the whole franchise is written so well, like story wise. From what I played so far, is great. It's funny. It's the whoever the localization team on this game is must have a riot because they have full liberties to do whatever they want on the side stuff. The side stuff is so out there, from cults to UFOs to just everything. And seeing the dialogue Kiryu has is funny. Like it's wild.
Yeah, like there's the odd point where Kiryu just has to babysit a kid. There's the odd point where
It's like
you
sure.
got to run across town as fast as you can and avoid all the fights because you don't have time for a fight. So you have to avoid. And if you hit a fight, all of a sudden it's like, nope, you lose. You ran into the guys you weren't supposed to. Back to the beginning. Try it again.
Yeah.
It's like you.
It's funny. Like it's good. It's wild that this game has gone on as long as it could, like as a franchise. Like I'm surprised nobody's like pointed out, like it's not a triple A game. It's like a double A game in terms of quality. Like they reuse assets all the time. Like it's a lot of the same
Yeah,
themes, but every
but I
time
mean,
you play this game, it's still fun as hell. Like it's great.
yeah, it seems like they do. I wonder what the budgets are for these games because they seem like they accomplish a lot in the development time, right?
Yeah.
How
Well, I think there's
big?
interviews with the guy, and they're asking, well, how do you manage to pump out these games like every other year? And he was pretty upfront saying we reuse assets, right? Like there's a reason they take place in the same city most of the time. And like there's certainly different things about every single game, absolutely, but they definitely reuse stuff, right? A baseball bat modeled for one game can totally be used in another game. Like there's no reason to redo work. And I think they embrace
Right.
that,
And like the budget for Yakuza 0 was 30 million.
which seems high, but it was also
It
one of the
does
more
seem
recent
high.
ones. Yeah.
But I mean, you factor it, you look at how much did GTA 5 cost?
Was that like 200 million or something ridiculous? I think it was
Yeah,
up
it
there.
was yeah, it was more than 200 million for a game that came years earlier.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's more varied and interesting stuff to do in Yakuza 0 than there is in GTA 5. GTA 5 is very formulaic to a point. And I know I'm not trying to compare them because I'm like, yeah, they're the same. But I'm just talking about like
Yeah.
they're both big open world games, but
Right.
one feels like there's a lot more to do than the other.
So
And
I'll say
the
in
fact
to
that they
compare
did
it to
it for like
5
1/8 the cost.
and also the time. Like yeah, GTA 5 was in development for like 5-6 years. I think it was a long time of development, and like 6 has also been around in development for a long time. It's almost unfair to compare the two because they're so different. But if we look at, like you said, open world, which they both are, and stuff to do, the mini games in Yakuza are better. Like all the mini games in GTA 5, like they're like you might spend a few minutes with it and then you're done. Like never am I going to sit down and do a mini game in GTA 5 for hours like I did the slot car racing in Yakuza. And it's not like
Yeah.
they're complicated in Yakuza either. Like the slot car thing is pretty basic for a mini game. The battle mini game in the arena, you don't even interact with anything. It's mostly placing bets on virtual people fighting. But it was somehow with the way they did the management side of things and the number crunching, it feels like one of those idle games on your phone. That's the feel of it, and it kind of gets you hooked. Whereas GTA 5, it's kind of like, oh, it's a shooting, it's a sniper mission, or it's like, find these items kind of side thing, and they're not nearly as fun.
Yeah.
Like it's funny that way. Like I love GTA 5. The story is and the characters are fantastic and definitely go toe to toe with Yakuza 0, maybe even better, but the gameplay wise of the mini games is second to none in Yakuza.
But I mean, it also makes sense that they just reuse the models. Like all they got to do is some of them, yeah, I'm sure it's straight up reused at least to a degree. So going from Yakuza 7 to Yakuza 8, they probably did some updates because now it's for the new generation. So,
Yeah,
but I don't think they're starting from zero. I think they take their old model and, up the mesh a little bit and then
right,
upgrade the texture and then call it a day. So you're spending half the time on that particular thing than you would have from scratch.
right.
Or, for a lot of the characters, you age them a little bit, right? So yeah, they all need a touch up anyway, but it's not like it's going to be a ton of work to reuse
Right.
the model to just update it a little. So instead of starting from scratch, which is great. Like that's also a great thing about this is there's so much that they can reuse because they're, it's all Kamurocho. It's all
Right.
Sotenbori, right? Well, for the most part anyway. So it's super easy to reuse these assets and it makes sense because it's all the same
Yeah.
place.
Like humans are humans no matter what they look like, and they only have to touch them up a little bit. It's not like you're doing like a Dragon
Yeah.
Quest, 10 versus 11. You're doing all brand new monsters, and this you can reuse the human models. And it's not like it's unusual. Like Konami back in 16 8-bit days, right? How many times did they reuse sprites for their monsters in Symphony of the Night and all those other Castlevania
Oh
games?
yeah.
They did it all the time. Like I feel like all the
Even
GBA and DS ones were reused sprites half the time.
yeah, they're generally reused and maybe touched up, right?
Right.
Slight update to it to make it work better on the hardware or, update it a little bit so it doesn't look exactly the same or whatever, but it's mostly reused assets for a lot of those enemies and moves and stuff. So it saves time, saves development time, saves money.
Yeah.
Why spend money on something you don't need to for something that you're seeing is a financial risk, hoping for the reward?
Right. And like I said, for
So
Yakuza, it worked out. You get awesome storytelling and fairly frequently time schedule. So, and
yeah,
it seems
the
like
the
they
only
did extra in 8. So maybe we'll see what they do for 9. But it seems like they've got a good foundation for how they're going to do these.
Yeah, for the Yakuza franchise, the only caveat I can see for people is be aware that while it's voice acted, it's not in English. You're going to be reading subtitles for the first 7 games, 0 through 6.
But you know what? I prefer it this way. I know there's dub vocals in the later games, and I didn't like it in 7. I turned it off in 7. There was English and Japanese voices in 7. I put it in Japanese, despite the cast being
Huh.
good. Like they had George Takei was in Yakuza 7 as the English voice actor, and that's great. But I turned it off, and I wanted the Japanese voices because of Zero. Because Zero's Japanese dialogue fits what you're playing. It feels like you're playing a movie, a Japanese, Yakuza period movie. That's what it feels like. That's to have English would ruin it to me, I think.
It almost put me off of playing the franchise at first. So then I had to test the waters and try it, and I was like, okay, that's not so bad. But when I initially was going to start playing these, I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that much reading. But
There's a lot. It's definitely
but
it's almost like a beat 'em up with JRPG level of reading and
yeah.
storytelling.
But I mean, you hear their voice actors, and they just fit, like Majima's voice actor fits him so well. Kiryu's
Yeah,
voice actor fits him so well, and so many of these characters, you hear them talk, and you're like, you can hear the sort of soap opera ness to it that they're putting through, and it sounds so fun the way they're doing it. And then when
yeah,
I was watching the trailer, like there was a 10-minute trailer put out for Infinite Wealth a month or two ago. I watched it before the game came out, and I was like,
yeah.
okay, I didn't expect it to be in English. I didn't know 7 was in English.
It's
I was still thinking, okay, the whole game will be in Japanese with English subtitles, but they pushed it out with these English
it,
voices, and I was like, "Whoa, whoa!" It's weird. It's not bad. It's just weird.
it's weird. It reminds me of the first time I saw a Jackie Chan movie. I went to the theater and I saw Rumble in the Bronx, not knowing that movie was dubbed. And seeing that
Ah,
style of movie dubbed felt so wrong the entire time I was watching that movie. Like it just didn't feel right at all. And I think it's the same feel for this game. If it wasn't Japanese, I don't think I would enjoy it as much. As weird as that is. Like I
I
mean,
can
I don't
see
mind
that.
dub. I've seen some animes in dub and they're fine. Like I've seen Cowboy Bebop in sub and dub, and I like both. But this franchise, I think, lives as a sub.
Yeah, it's so for movies, for me specifically, movies and television shows, another tangent, I'm sorry, but I stray away from watching movies and shows that require subtitles because and I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast, but I have something called nystagmus, where my eyes shake back and forth constantly. I don't really have any control over it. My brain never really properly made my eyes sync up to look at something straight. So they're always trying to sync up, so constantly shaking. So as I've gotten older, reading subtitles is difficult for me, especially,
Right.
if the TV is 10, 12 feet from me, because the TV is huge now, it can be. So it's harder for me to read that text the further it is. So I'm spending so much time trying to keep up with the text that I'm missing the movie.
Oh, okay. I got you.
So
Yeah.
in that regard, I stay away from things if I have to read subtitles to keep up with the story. Um, so, I tend to prefer dubs if I can get them, even if it feels a little off. Like it's the reason I haven't watched Parasite, the Korean movie,
Right. Because
because
that's
I
all
was hoping
subbed.
there'd be an
Yeah.
English dub, but I've not been able to find it. So I'm like, well, I guess I won't watch it because I can't.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I almost just went away from Yakuza before I even started it. But the fact that I could actually read it at my own pace, I'm not rushed through, at least most of the time.
Yeah,
And generally,
there's
if
a
it
few
is,
cutscenes where they're not pausable, I think, but for most part, I think you can even pause during cutscenes. It's pretty good that way.
yeah, and the pacing is usually pretty good if it's auto fed instead of just going at your own
Yeah.
pace. So yeah, it works in that regard. So this was not like, as someone who stays away from subtitled works now, uh, I did not have an issue with this at all. I love the franchise.
Yeah, it's a good one. Like I said, Zero is fantastic place. Even if you don't have any interest in playing the franchise, even if you don't want to play 7 and 8, I think playing Yakuza 0 is a nice like state of the franchise and nice like way to just capture the feel of what they're going for the franchise, and playing that is worth playing, like especially the story. The story is legit good in this, like
Yeah,
drama, the intrigue, the Yakuza culture and traditions, and the way it tugs at your emotions to feel for criminals. Like it's
and the
interesting in a lot of ways. It's like Sopranos level.
and the plot twists, like occasionally
Yeah,
you'll see one coming, but a lot of them are like, what?
yeah.
It's so good.
And like the interplay with Majima and Kiryu and how they tie those two together. And that's why the story is so long, is they have two different stories they're bringing together. And it's just, I'm glad that I liked how they wrapped it up at the end, and I felt it was really good. Like enough where like I said, you could stop there and be good, or you can play 7 if you want to, or you could legit go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 if you wanted to. I like how they wrapped up the story. It was a really interesting origin story, but I could stop there if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, definitely check out the franchise. Look into it if you've not. It's worth at least giving it a look. See if you're interested. Grab it on sale if you're hesitant. I think we've gushed about Yakuza 0 for long enough. What do you think?
I think I'm good. My mother-in-law is telling me dinner is ready, and I got to go look after the baby. So, so I have to go.
We have a bad habit of running long if it's just you and me. Oof.
But I mean, we talk about games that are like legit great and that we're passionate about, right? So this is one of those games where I'm glad to have played it finally after several years, and I'm happy I played it. I want other people to play this game and to experience what the characters and stories are. It's legit a great game, like a great story to play. And you don't have to play it on normal difficulty. Play it on easy. You're losing nothing. If you don't like that beat 'em up combat, and I don't really care for it, play it on easy and you get a great story. And if you want a challenge, pump it up on hard and you have a fighting game. It's fun. It's a great game with the wide reach, and it's uniquely Sega is one way to put it. Like this is the way Sega used to make all their games. Like that. It's AAA but not kind of style to them, and they're just legit good. I know I love Sega.
Yeah, it feels almost AAA quality without having the AAA development costs, I guess.
Yeah. And like almost a bloat to them that's not there on these. Like it's just a raw game. Yeah.
So anyway, thank you all for listening to Jake and I gush and go on tangents for over an hour now, well over an hour. Check out our Discord, check out our website, pressbtocancel.com. You can follow us, you can find all our socials and links on our website to join our Discord, join the community. Oh my goodness. I am having trouble talking. Join the conversation. Leave comments in the video that you're watching if you're watching the video. Just if you've got something to say about Yakuza that we didn't talk about, let us know.
Yes. Yeah. Do you like this game? Do you gush along with us like this is a great game, or do you think this is a pass for you? Like, if anybody who's watching this video, have you actually played through all of the franchise? If so, what's that like? Because I'm planning to do that. I want to know if it's worth my time. Because 0 is fantastic, but I'm really worried about 3, 4 in the middle. That's where I'm worried I'm going to get stuck. But so if you played
I made
I'd
it
love
through
to hear
3. I think you can make it through 3.
Okay. We'll get there. All right.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. Have a good one.